Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Debrief. I'm Emily Rao. Glad to have you with us. A busy show today. Michael Flynn will learn his fate any minute now. The remarkable fall of the decorated veteran and early Trump supporter. Plus, we're in Florida, where that first of its kind SpaceX launch will not happen after all. And we'll take you on to California, where those huge waves are crashing against the West Coast and even getting bigger. All of that and much more. But first, your headlines.
CBS now says it will not pay former CEO Les Moonves of any of his $120 million severance package. Company says it had cause to fire him for misleading investigators about sexual harassment allegations.
In a statement released overnight, Moonves' attorney disputes CBS's ruling, maintaining the embattled former executive denies having any non-consensual sexual relations during his time at the company, and that the press was informed of these baseless conclusions before Mr. Moonves, further damaging his name, reputation, career, and legacy. According to the New York Times, which says it obtained a copy of the final report, investigators discovered Moonves deleted hundreds of text messages, and when asked to turn over his tablet, instead provided his young son's iPad.
T-Mobile and Sprint have cleared another barrier in their push to merge. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., which looks at deals for potential national security problems, has given its okay to the $26 billion merger.
Chicago rocked by the deaths of two police officers, both killed when they were hit by a commuter train.
Officials say the officers were chasing an armed suspect along the tracks when a passenger train headed for Indiana sped through, hitting the officers and killing them instantly. The officers have been identified as 37-year-old Eduardo Marmolejo and 31-year-old Conrad Gary. Both men were fathers and had young families.
Pray for the families of these two heroic young men, and please say a prayer for the men and women of the 5th District, who even tonight will still stop at nothing to safeguard their community.
And we start with today's sentencing. It's now been more than a year since Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russia. And since that time, he has been cooperating with his special counsel's investigation. But today, we learn his sentence. Our Pierre Thomas, of course, closely following this story every step of the way. He's joining us from Washington. And Pierre, he could face up to 6 months in prison.
That's correct, but the special counsel is recommending that he get no jail time. But you're right, it's up to the judge. The final decision on his fate will be decided by that judge in the courthouse right behind me.
And officials have released some more sentencing documents, some other information. Pierre, what have we learned from that in the last day or so?
Well, the FBI released their 302, which basically chronicles the interview that they did with Flynn. And it doesn't tell us anything dramatically new, but it makes pretty clear that he was given repeated opportunities to tell them the truth and that he simply chose not to do so.
And, speaking to that, how does he fit in with the special counsel's investigation? How important of a puzzle piece is he really in the broader look?
Well, the most interesting thing about those sentencing memorandums that you spoke of is that there's so many redactions. There's so many things that have been kept secret. What that tells you is that there are ongoing investigations, and we know a heavy focus of the special counsel has been Russia. That's what they're trying to give information from Flynn on, Russia, and we believe, based on the fact that the special counsel has been so active and aggressive in saying that he should get no jail time, they believe he's provided valuable information. And remember, he's had 19 different sessions with the special counsel, over 60 hours of interrogation.
And Pierre, we understand this started at 11 o'clock just a couple of minutes ago. I'm curious, what are you looking for out of today, aside from just the sentencing? What are you watching out for?
Well, the main thing is that critical question we don't yet have the answer to. Why did he lie? Why did he feel the need to lie to the vice president? Why did he feel the need to lie to other members of the White House? We don't have the answer to that question. It would be interesting to see if he speaks to that. We do expect him to talk before the court today.
All right, thank you so much, Pierre Thomas. We appreciate it. Outside the courthouse there in Washington, we also have our Kenneth Moten not far from Pierre at the courthouse. Want to bring him in now to talk about the scene there. Kenneth, what is it like? What are people saying?
Emily, quite a scene here. We expected there would be some demonstrators, and in fact, we got some this morning. When Michael Flynn walked into this federal courthouse behind me, he was greeted by demonstrators, people who feel pretty strongly about the way Flynn acted during the 2016 campaign. We know that Flynn led the chants of lock her up when referring to Hillary Clinton, and so we had people outside this federal courthouse who were following him with signs that said more Russian sanctions, talking about collusion. We know the president obviously has tweeted and chimed in with there was no collusion when it came to the Trump campaign and Russians, but when it comes to Flynn and lying about contacts with Russians during the 2016 campaign, we know that there are a number of people, Hillary Clinton supporters, Democrats, who feel pretty strongly about his actions, what he's walking into this courthouse to plead guilty to, and what he's already pled guilty to, and now obviously this sentencing. And so quite a scene out here, Emily, and we expected that. As far as will it grow, we don't know at this point, but the folks are still outside this courthouse right now. You see the video that we've been running since my colleague Pierre was talking that you're showing right now that shows the scene out here as those folks holding up signs and really making it known that they're not happy with Michael Flynn and his actions during that 2016 campaign.
Yeah,
Emily?
Seeing that one that says Putin's puppet right there in his face. Always interesting to see what people come up with. Kenneth, I'm curious, what happens after the sentencing? Do we expect to have Michael Flynn walk back outside the courthouse? Will he talk to us? What's the scoop there?
Great question, Emily. At this point, we don't expect Michael Flynn to speak, but anything is possible. The microphones are set up. We'll see what happens. We'll obviously be ready to carry that live right here on ABC News Live. But as far as Flynn, when he walks out of that courthouse, he will go through the same pretty much mosh pit of demonstrators who were following him from his car. They'll likely follow him again to his vehicle as we wait to find out, will he serve jail time for pleading guilty to lying to the FBI? Emily?
All right, Kenneth, thank you very much from right outside that courthouse. We appreciate it. And now we want to turn to the White House, where our Terry Moran joins us, and to talk more really about the president's relationship with Flynn. Terry, it's been interesting from day one. What is he saying about the sentencing today?
Well, he's wishing General Flynn good luck. It's very interesting to watch President Trump here at a distance communicate with General Flynn because with everyone else who has cooperated with prosecutors, the president turns on them, that they're rats, that they're weaks. He uses this mobster language to describe them. Mike Flynn cooperated a great deal with the special counsel's office, so much so that, as Pierre pointed out, they're recommending no time at all in prison. And so the president has got this warm relationship. And then just this morning, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders was out here, and she was talking what the White House line is, which is what Flynn's defense lawyers have said, that he was ambushed by the FBI, that yeah, he lied, but it was really, the FBI wasn't following protocols, the lies maybe weren't material, and so essentially excusing his conduct. We'll see how the judge responds to all that. The special counsel says, no, this is a man who ran an intelligence agency, was a high official of the United States government. He knows it's wrong to lie to the FBI. It'll be an interesting drama in the court, watched from here with some remaining affection, it seems, from the president towards his former national security advisor.
Yeah, fascinating that Michael Cohen is a rat, but Mike Flynn seems to still be in somewhat of his good graces. Switching gears now, Terry, a whole lot of other stories we're also tracking out of Washington. The shutdown is looming. What are you hearing there from the White House about that? Just a couple days to go.
Well, it sounds like there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it has to do with how you get to the number $5 billion. That's what President Trump has been absolutely demanding, to build this border wall. And the Democrats have said absolutely he's not going to see a dime of that because they don't think the country supports it. So what it looks like might happen, once again, Sarah Sanders suggesting some creative accounting. The Democrats say they will put in more than $1 billion into border security, new double fencing perhaps, and the like. And if you add that maybe with some money that the president has discretion over, he's talked about using the military. It's difficult legally, but it looks like they're going to try and cook up some way of saying it's $5 billion, we can keep the government open. That would be good for both sides and for the federal workers who and others who would be disadvantaged severely by a partial government shutdown. So light at the end of the tunnel. It's not soup yet, though. It's a mixed metaphor.
You told us yesterday, I think, to buckle up and hold on, and we are trying with all these different stories to track. Another development to talk about, bump stocks. You're hearing some news about that situation.
That's right. A bump stock is that device that people can use to help them pull the trigger on a gun faster because it recoils, and it can turn a semi-automatic weapon, which would require a trigger pull for each round that's fired, make it feel more like an automatic weapon. It became famous after the massacre in Las Vegas, where it was used by the shooter to visit mayhem on the crowd below. The president has said he wants them banned, and the Department of Justice has now released a rule saying we're redefining what a machine gun is. And if you have a bump stock, that's going to be a machine gun, and it's banned. And even if you've bought one, you got to turn them in or show us you've destroyed it. It will go in for a serious court challenge. There's no question. Can they just redefine what a machine gun is, especially since a machine gun is defined as if you pull the trigger once, it will fire a number of rounds. And in a bump stock, you still are firing just faster. It'll have problems in the court. But the president wants to get out there and say that he's done something, and he's going to announce it this afternoon as part of his school safety program that he has also ordered the banning of bump stocks. We'll see what the courts make of that.
Yeah, and lots of talk about that new school safety report. And Terry, that came out of or after the Parkland shooting. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but some people are already pointing out that that new school report from the Trump administration isn't really addressing many of the concerns that many of the students from Parkland actually had and wanted to see changed.
Well, look, we are obviously as a country on two different sides of what to do with this plague of school shootings and mass shootings that we have. And on one side are people who want to ban certain kinds of weapons, bump stocks, also assault weapons, make them more difficult to obtain, traditional gun control measures. The president doesn't believe in that. He thinks there should be more guns in the hands of responsible adult security officers and teachers in schools. And also, he thinks that schools have been allowed by the Obama administration rules to go lax on disciplining unruly students. The critics point out that's not really who you're dealing with when you're dealing with a school shooter. These are not people who are traditional discipline problems in schools. They're loners. They're broken minds and hearts who manage to get their hands on lethal weapons and do violence to people. So he's going to roll out his ideas. And you can bet, just given the nature of this debate, that they will be opposed by plenty of people, including the activists from Parkland who have their own agenda.
All right, Terry Moran at the White House, always so good at putting it all in perspective for us. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we want to turn to some other news now out of Chicago. We are now a week before Christmas, and two families will have to bury their loved ones after two police officers were killed in the line of duty yesterday when they were chasing a suspect and then were hit by a train. Our Alex Perez tracking that story for us. So tragic here. Alex, can you walk us through what happened?
Hey, Emily, indeed a tragic day for the Chicago Police Department. I want to give you an idea of the scene here. This is actually Chicago Police headquarters, and there is a very somber mood in this building amongst everyone here. And if you take a look, the flags here are at half staff. That flag you see there, that purple and black one with the gold star, that's the flag that is put out when an officer is killed in the line of duty. A very, very somber mood here. Now, authorities say this all happened very quickly. These two officers were responding to a call of shots fired. They confront this suspect who then takes off. And according to investigators, the suspect jumps onto train tracks. The officers follow that suspect when suddenly they are struck by a train that's moving very, very fast, up to 60 miles per hour. Authorities say those two officers were killed instantly. Now, they were 37-year-old Eduardo Marmolejo and 31-year-old Corey Gary. And investigators say this is a loss for this department. They have been coping with loss this year now 4 times. So as you might imagine, a tough day for the Chicago Police Department right now.
Oh, of course. And those, you know, every time a police officer dies, it feels like the city really comes together and there's a collective mourning there. And to have it be now the 4th time this year, absolutely horrible. How is the city responding, Alex?
You know, the Chicago Police Department gave these officers their highest honors. Commanders themselves went on into this scene to collect the remains of these officers, and there was a special procession that went from this scene to the medical examiner's office. The mayor, Rahm Emanuel, talked about the toll this takes on the police department and the people here in this city. Let's take a quick listen to what the mayor had to say.
We as a city have to measure up and remind them that they're part of our family. There are no words that can express the grief, the sense of loss. This knocks you back on your heels. I think it's really important that we put our arms around the Chicago Police Department and hold them up and support them at this critical juncture.
Now, we're told both of these officers had young children. They had been on the police force for less than 3 years. Now, as far as that suspect, Emily, the suspect they were chasing, he is in police custody, and authorities say they have recovered a weapon from the scene. Emily?
All right, Alex Perez in Chicago for us. Alex, thank you so much. And let's shift now to Florida to some much more exciting news there. Several rocket launches planned today, including the SpaceX rocket, which was actually just called off. Our David Curley is in Florida. The vice president is also there, which speaks to just how significant this is. David, give us the rundown, and do you know why that launch was scrubbed?
Well, first of all, let's talk about why this was such an important day. 3 of the leading private space companies are in a space race, and you are going to see it today because 3 launches were scheduled by these 3 companies. Unfortunately, 2 of them have already been scrubbed. The 3rd one is for later tonight. Let's talk about why we're here in Florida, and that is SpaceX, which was actually going to carry and hopes to tomorrow its first national security payload into space. It's a GPS satellite. It's part of what's called the GPS 3 series, and it's a constellation. This will be the 32nd satellite that will work together, 32 of them, to triple the accuracy of GPS that you get on your phone or you get in your car. So that was scrubbed just a couple of minutes before the window closed today because of a computer problem on the Falcon 9 rocket. They have a window again tomorrow they will try. Then a few minutes later, Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO of Amazon, he has his own company. It's called Blue Origin. He was scheduled to launch out of Texas and send 9 science satellites for NASA into space. They scrubbed even before SpaceX. The 3rd launch is set for tonight out of California. That's called the United Launch Alliance. We call them ULA. It's Boeing and Lockheed. And they are sending a spy satellite into space. We'll see whether they go or not, or whether tomorrow we get to see whether these 3 companies continue to battle it out and duke it out in this space race. As you mentioned, the vice president was here as well today, and he announced that the president, who wants a space force, which would be a new branch of the military and would require government, congressional approval. Well, what the president is going to do, and has actually already done, is sign an executive order to start a combatant command, a space command. There are several already. You've heard of CENTCOM, you've heard of all these other different commands. This would be a space command that the president is setting up through executive order, Emily.
And David, I heard Vice President Pence call this a new era in American leadership that has now begun. Can you just touch a little bit more on why this is significant and really a big shift perhaps from how we have dealt with space technology exploration in the past?
So if you remember, or anybody who's studied space, there was a space race between the United States and Russia. This is the new space race, and it is a space race between private companies, and space is being opened up with this private frontier. And all of these companies want this government business. It's a very lucrative business. So ULA putting that spy satellite up into space, that's a pretty good contract. SpaceX had actually been not contracted into a lot of this back in 2014 and fought the government, actually fought a lawsuit which finally got tossed out when the government opened up more contracts to other companies. And so SpaceX was going to do this first launch of this national security payload. So they are all trying to do tourism space. They want to send satellites, whether they're commercial satellites or whether they're government satellites or military satellites. And that is what we're seeing now, is this battle between them to get as much of that business as possible. And why, when we had 3 scheduled on the same day, it tells you that this is really moving quickly. It's a new age in space. It's pretty exciting for anybody who likes what's going on up near the heavens.
That is pretty exciting. All right, our David Curley in Florida for us. Thank you so much. We keep our fingers crossed for tomorrow's launch. And let's go to California now, where those huge waves are crashing into the West Coast. I want to bring in a reporter from our KGO station, our ABC affiliate there in San Francisco, Amy Holyfield. Hey there, Amy. We see the waves even behind you, and we understand they've even been getting bigger since yesterday.
It feels like they certainly have. Just this morning, as we've been watching it, Emily, we're getting quite a water show here. Let me show it to you. Very powerful to watch these huge waves crashing into this wall. It makes you feel very small, I have to say. You want to watch from a safe distance, and there's a huge risk of getting wet out here if you watch. We are in Pacifica, which is just south of San Francisco. Some are saying these are the largest waves they've seen in a couple of years. This is all from a storm that's already blown out of here. We have blue skies today, but still huge waves, and of course a serious warning comes along with these waves. In fact, they're saying people shouldn't be on the beach at all. They should just not even be on the sand. Stay up above and away from it, with the National Weather Service even putting out a tweet saying, don't make the beach your grave. Oh, wow. So some very serious warnings about staying clear of this. And let me just show you a quick cute little shot we found before we let you go. We found there's a cafe right here in Pacifica. Oh, they just left. Of course they did. We had like 4 men all lined up here at this countertop, watching the waves, eating their breakfast. Here they are. They're departing right now. They certainly had the best seat in town. I just admired the way they were safely watching this beautiful sight, but staying nice and dry. Emily, back to you.
Amy, thank you so much. Sort of that mentality of look, but do not touch, do not get too close, and stay safe. All right, thank you, Amy Holyfield with KGO. Our thanks to you. Of course, she mentioned that it's part of that storm system that's moving across the country. We want to get an update on the weather. We know so many people are hitting the roads, hitting the skies to get home for the holidays. So let's get an update now on the weather from our Rob Marciano. Hey, Rob.
Hello, Emily. Great to see you. We are watching these Pacific storms continue to roll in. Look at some of the wave action the past couple of days. This is Half Moon Bay in Northern California, where they typically have the Mavericks surf competition. They were supposed to have it. They canceled it because the waves were too big. These things were 4, 5 stories high. At some points, the surfers bailing out and not even deciding to drop into some of these monsters. Just incredible stuff. In Pacifica, just to the west of San Francisco, also big waves there crashing into the shoreline, and even some of the oceanfront restaurants getting a little bit of damage from some of the big waves there, and that's going to continue as the storms continue to roll in. The higher elevations, of course, is the snow. Interstate 90 at Snoqualmie, Interstate 80 at Donner Pass, all requiring chains to get up and over those mountain passes. And today, in the next couple days, really, those will be areas of concern. Interstate 84, down Portland and through the Gorge, areas of concern, not just for potential landslides, but maybe some avalanches as well at some of the higher elevations. I-5 will be very wet north of Sacramento. And then this storm gets to the east. Once it crosses the Mississippi, it really expands and becomes a pretty heavy rainmaker with some severe weather around I-10 Thursday, Friday, and becoming heavy rain along I-95 and I-80 later in the week. But heavy snow is expected with the rainfall out west. Could see 5 or 6 inches at some of the coastal mountains, and then locally 3 or 4 feet at, say, 4,000 or 5,000 feet and higher. And then look at the rainfall. Man, has it been a soggy last 6 months here east of the Mississippi. More rain coming as we head towards Saturday. So not many people at this point looking for a white Christmas, but we do see a pattern change, Emily, at some point as we get closer towards the year, for better or for worse. More on that in the days to come. Emily?
All right, thanks a lot, Rob, from the West Coast and East Coast and everywhere in between. And that is going to do it for today's debrief. So glad to have you with us, and want to remind you, of course, to watch later on today. The briefing room is coming up for you at 3:30 Eastern Time. And then we have World News Prime at 8 o'clock. And, of course, download that ABC News app so you can stay informed, get your breaking news alerts any time of day. So glad you joined us today, and we hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great day.